Hi everyone, Troy Martin, TM Fitness, and welcome to my latest Wafflings with the Whiteboard. So today I'm going to talk about muscle activation. So before I start, I just want to touch on a little subject, something that is a bit of a bugbear for me. So in the fitness industry, there's a lot of debate. Debate is good if debate brings about a solution or conclusion and encourages new thinking. Arguing about semantics isn't a debate, and this is something that a lot of fitness professionals do. They get annoyed by certain words, people's use of words, and they waste a lot of energy singling people out, moaning about words, writing articles, posting videos, and nobody really benefits from that. Apparently, muscle activation is a buzzword, and that pisses off the bros. That if you're a bro, fuck off. So, what is muscle activation? It's not like there's a on-off switch. It's not like you press a switch and the muscle switches on, and then you press it again and the muscle switches off. Muscles react to the joint. So I've got here, it's kind of like a subheading: joints act, muscles react. Okay, so the joint moves and then the muscles react to that joint movement. In fact, contrary to popular belief, the eccentric contraction of a muscle is probably the primary movement of that muscle, more so than the concentric. Yes, the concentric contraction is very important, but the eccentric contraction is slowing down that joint movement. It's a deceleration to prevent hyperextension or overflexion of a joint. It's a safety mechanism. So joints act, muscles react, but the movement starts up here. So if you look at my very crude drawing of the man here, here's his brain, here are his like neurosynapses, if you like, going down to the muscles in his bum, because I'm going to be talking about the glutes in a moment. So his brain is telling his hip to work, and then the glutes and the muscles around the hip complex react to that hip motion. This is sometimes what's referred to as mind-muscle connection. It's another buzzword or buzz phrase that pisses people off. It doesn't really mean anything. Mind-muscle connection is just like words. But these are layman terms that kind of help people to visualize and understand the mechanisms that are going on here. The process that happens in the brain, this thought or this intention to move a joint, is what's referred to in psychology circles as action potential. So the action potential starts in the mind. Your central nervous system, your neuromuscular system reacts to that, and that connection down here is what's known as a neuromuscular junction. The thought, the intention has travelled through the nerves, it's connected with the muscles, it's created that motion. So whether you're flexing the hip or extending the hip, the muscles then react to that joint motion. So what's that got to do with muscle activation? Well, basically what I'm trying to get through to you here is that if the joint's moving, the muscles are acting. So they're already activated. So you don't have to necessarily, consciously concern yourself with muscle activation. But what often happens is you get kind of the timing of the muscle contraction gets thrown out in some cases. So basically muscles have like two actions. They contract and they relax. Some muscles become hypertonic or hypersensitive. You feel those muscles more, you use those muscles more, and that's kind of compensation. So I'm going to use this example to explain that. Okay, you may have heard the term gluteal amnesia. Now again, your muscles don't have a brain, they don't have memory, so it's not an actual thing, but it's just a layman term to describe what's happening here. So if you lay on the floor in a bridge position like this, the red circle, if you can see that, is the hip, and then the red line at the back of the leg there is the hamstrings. Okay, your prime mover in hip extension are the glutes, the gluteus maximus in particular. So if you come up into a bridge position, you should feel the glutes working. The hamstrings at this position shouldn't be too heavily involved. They're involved in the action, but they're not a prime mover. Now, what happens with a lot of people, if you do a lot of sitting, you're not using your glutes and other muscles for large portions of the day, they become kind of desensitized and they switch off a little bit. And then when that happens, when you're moving, if that muscle's not quite firing correctly, then compensation will set in and other muscles will help to compensate to create that movement. What happens here, a lot of cases, and it's not always sedentary people, sometimes this happens with active people who become like, quote unquote, quad dominant. So I find this is really common with runners and cyclists, that the glutes just aren't quite active enough. They're not engaging through these movements as effectively as they should be. So if you come up into the bridge position and your hamstring tightens or even cramps up, what's happening there is that rather it being a pushing motion, so rather than the glutes dominating that movement to drive the hip up, the hamstrings are engaging, and it's almost like it's trying to pull the heel in towards the hip, but it's just that motion. It's more of a pulling action. So to get the hip up, you're pulling with the hamstrings rather than driving and pushing with the hip. So if you do this bridge position and you feel tension in the hamstrings and not so much activation through the glutes, simple way to reprogram that is to just do the movement, but push your foot into the ground. You don't want to feel that pulling motion. You want to press the foot down and push the hip up. And when you get that action rather than that action, you're engaging the glutes more than the hamstrings, and it helps to reprogram the timing of that recruitment pattern. Okay, and you don't have to do it loads, you don't have to do it all the time. I find just doing 3 or 4 10-second holds is enough for most people, and you can do that at the start of an exercise program. If you're a runner and you're getting problems with your hamstrings, it might just be that you need to do this, like I say, 3 or 4 10-second holds before you go for a run, just to reprogram that recruitment pattern. You can make this harder for yourself by doing it single leg. So extend one leg out and then drive up. And if you go up into a bridge position and then lift one foot off the floor, if you have quote unquote gluteal amnesia, you may actually feel your hamstrings cramp very, very quickly. And that's a sure sign that the glutes aren't engaging. So we're trying to reactivate or reprogram the recruitment pattern to activate the muscles and reprogram that movement. So I hope that made sense to you. If you've got any questions, put it in the box below. Click like, click share, follow me, and I'll see you again soon. Ladies.